Hi, it's Bill from Defender Mods and Travels here. Now we all know if you want to go overlanding you cannot leave home without a big powerful winch, and you've also got to cater for any eventuality. For example, mandatory to have 2 spare wheels. But is this actually true? I will share the benefit of my experiences on this. So what is my overlanding experience? Well, I'm most definitely not a hardcore off-roader. For me, it's about getting to see interesting places, and it's not about proving my vehicle. I'm based in Western Europe, been all around there, but also over to the east, to the Balkans, to Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Peloponnese, into Turkey, up to the Black Sea, also down into North Africa on a couple of occasions, and on one occasion been over to Borneo. But I guess a common denominator is I don't go to completely uninhabited areas. There are always people around, and the motto I've got is do what the locals do. If it works for them, it's good enough for me. Well, talk the devil. I have a delegation of local citizens who dropped in to check me out. And they're very welcome too. Vehicle recovery. What do the locals do? Have they all got winches on their vehicles? Of course they don't. If they get bogged down, they'll ask for a push from many bystanders, or maybe ask for a tow from a passing vehicle. You've got to be prepared. You obviously need to carry shackles, ropes, strops, that sort of thing. You also need to have recovery points front and rear, and incidentally, if you're going to ship your vehicle, these are ideal for holding the vehicle down. You'll find that standard containers have holding down eyes in the 4 corners for this purpose. Now you can't always rely on passers-by to rescue you. You've got to have some self-recovery capability. My go-to is a high lift jack and waffle boards, and these have always got me out of any situation I've been in. Now I had just such a case this week, and I wasn't even off-roading. Parked here, coming out, I reversed down the hill. I didn't take account of the fact there'd been torrential overnight rain and I got bogged down. So how did I get out? I'm a little bit stuck here, but nothing too serious. However, there is a risk of running down the hill and into the valley, so the first thing is to chop the front wheels. Now, one slight complication is that my favoured waffle boards, which would have me out in a jiffy, they aren't here. They're at the olive grove, serving double duty as loading ramps, so I'll have to make do with what I can find here. I start jacking corner number 1 under the bumperette. Now, conventional wisdom is that you must never jack a vehicle on a slope. However, you have to do what you have to do. The golden rule is to make sure that everything's secured so it can't slip away from you. I've been lucky to find some logs and pack them in under the rear wheel. Absolutely ideal. Now jacking corner number 2. In this case I'm using the jack adapter into the rear cross member. I've also found some old scaffold boards, and these will make do as makeshift recovery boards, remembering of course to pull out any old nails first. Now jacking the front. I do incidentally have welded lugs under the front bumper and the rear bumperette to locate the jack shoe. And look at my jack base. You can easily spend £50 on this, but this is a chunk of old timber which cost me basically nothing. And now we're ready to go. Easy does it, absolutely no problem whatsoever. So that's the story of my little recovery. But why did I go to the trouble of documenting in detail such a routine recovery? I was just trying to make the point, it's amazing what you can do using merely a high lift jack and whatever materials you can find to hand. You don't need to have a 5-ton winch costing maybe a couple of £1,000 in order to do it. But if I'd had a winch, would it have saved me? In this case it would have done. There was just one tree within range which I could have winched against. But what if the Defender had been facing downhill? I'd have been absolutely stuffed. Secondly, spare wheels. Again, my advice is do what the locals do. Now, you don't have to take that entirely literally, and indeed I wouldn't recommend that you emulate this old jeepney where the spare has clearly seen better days. But what do the locals do? Well, they have stock wheels and tyres available in commonly used sizes. And in the developing world, any community from a large village upwards is going to have its own tyre shop. And they are very adept at repairing tyres, indeed, which we in the West would regard as being irreparable. They do it every day. And if they can't repair the tyre, providing it's in a commonly available size, they will source you a replacement. It may not even be new. It will get you going again. Now, many experts, including some people whose advice I would normally respect, advocate that you ought to have a couple of spare wheels. I just don't get it. I think their logic is that you're going to destroy more than one tyre, and the only way you're going to get home is if you're carrying a couple of spares. Now, in my experience over a couple of decades, on only one occasion have I actually seriously damaged the tyre. I got sidewall damage in Romania. In fact, I did a temporary repair in the field using an old inner tube, and it was so good that it got me all the way home to England. No problems at all. And incidentally, these days I carry internal self-vulcanizing patches which will repair quite extensive damage. However, you can make things difficult for yourself. If you're carrying unusual tyre and wheel sizes, something like this. Now, I have several problems with this. Firstly, unusual diameter. These are R18s, whereas the R16s are the most common size. Secondly, the tyres are actually reasonably low profile, and you aren't going to be able to lower the tyre pressure to where you want it to be under difficult off-road conditions. Thirdly, I wouldn't go for an alloy wheel. Except the very best quality alloy wheels, they are going to be more fragile and less robust than mild steel equivalents. But worse than that, some of the modern ones have special internal profiles, and they have, for example, these bead retention grooves, and it's going to make it practically impossible to get the tyre off the rim. To do it, you are going to need a tyre removal station, but in many places they just aren't available. And you'll find a guy like this is really going to struggle to get the tyre off without damaging either the bead or the wheel rim. So my advice, just do what the locals do, but if you do insist on having unusual wheel and tyre sizes, then maybe it's best to carry a couple of spares. Finally, we come to the question of size and weight. Now, I've already indicated that a large winch is going to weigh about 50 kilos, probably rather more when it's fitted, particularly if you've got a large winch bumper, you're carrying snatch blocks, ground anchors, you name it. And likewise, a large spare wheel and its carrier, that too is going to be another 50 kilos, so the pair of them are going to be over 100 kilos. Now, in this vehicle, I struggle to meet the GVM, and where am I going to save 100 kilos? Perhaps kick out my travelling partner with all of her luggage, or maybe carry 100 litres less fluids. I just can't afford it, and particularly not for accessories, which I'm probably never going to use except under the most extreme of circumstances. And finally, the question of appearance. Now, I do realise that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but to me as an engineer, I like lightness, economy and efficiency. And to me, things like these huge spare wheels on the back of your vehicle, they're over the top and ugly, and I wouldn't actually want them at any price. So do yourself a favour, do what the locals do and save yourself a lot of cost, weight and trouble.